Well, hi there, Laurel. Nice to see you, and thanks for coming in for a chat. Looking
Thank
forward to it.
you. Yeah, it's so good to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us who you are, what you're doing, and a little bit about that. That'd be great.
Sure. So I am Laurel Rutledge. I like to say, a recovering senior HR executive, right? Started my own business a few years ago just to really take everything that I've learned and everything that I know and make a bigger impact and just really serve a purpose for people. Because I don't want anyone, especially any woman or woman of color, to feel the way I felt when I was in corporate. So giving people an opportunity to really think deeper about who they are, where they are, what they want, and what it takes to get there in a space of no judgment, because who am I to judge, right? So that we can all move forward, own our own stuff, but move into that thing that we know we are meant to do. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. And I have a podcast and radio show, and who knew this introverted me would love to do that? So it's a great journey right now.
I love it. I love it. So my first question for you is, where has fear limited your opportunities?
When I started thinking about that question, um, it was actually probably one of the most difficult ones because I found myself so much just kind of pushing through just because. But when I think about where it's truly limited me, I would say it's more delayed than limited. And one of the key examples of that is this radio show that I have, because when I first got that opportunity, I had told myself in January of 2019, Laurel, you're going to be more visible. Laurel, you're going to work on being more visible. And then in August, I actually guested on this show that was at this particular radio station. And the producer afterwards said, I need you to come do a show. You just need to do a show. This is the time I have open. I need you to do a show. And I was like, let me think about it. I, I don't know. Let me think about it. And because the show actually streams live on Facebook. So it's not just radio, like you're on. And I remember going to a coach I had at the time. We were talking about being on camera and broadcasting your brilliance and all of this kind of thing. And we were talking in my session about how you show up and getting your stuff in front of press and TV and all of that. And I said, well, I kind of got maybe this opportunity to do a radio show. And she's like, excuse me. And I said, well, I don't know, maybe. She's like, no. You're going to send her a note today and you're going to say yes. And I thought, well, all right. And here we are, almost 2 years later for this radio show. So I have allowed that kind of fear of, no, I'm not supposed to, no, my message is not quite as good. Who am I to say something to limit me in terms of accepting opportunities and quite frankly, maybe have actually pushed some opportunities away because I just wasn't ready.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a pretty common story too. It's like we have to convince ourselves that we're capable of doing that. So
Yeah.
I get that. So what do you think has been the greatest contributor to your success?
For me, the greatest contributor for my success has really been just saying yes. I love to learn and I get bored pretty quickly. And so what I've seen over time, right? Because hindsight is 2020, as I look at all of the things that I did, starting out as an accountant, right, doing some consulting, doing internal audit, ultimately winding up in HR. And when I look back over my career flow and now doing my own business, every time something just didn't quite feel right, like it was time to move, something came up and I just said yes, right? I've moved around the country with no family really, and just took the opportunity because I knew where I wasn't it. So where I'm going has got to be better than where I am. So I may as well just say yes and just figure it out. So I think the biggest factor for me in success has been just saying yes and figuring it out and diving into that. And then if that turns out not to be the thing, then go to the next thing, but using each as an opportunity.
I love it. And certainly there's a lot of people listening to this and watching this who will be thinking about that too, in terms of, so the whole thing I say about being fearless is not the absence of fear, but the courage to take the next step. And that's really what you're saying, is just do it, take the next step and see what happens. You'll always
Absolutely.
surprise yourself. I mean, that's the
Right.
other side of this. You'll always surprise yourself. Like, whoa.
Always. Yeah, always.
Yeah, it's great. Third question for you is, what would have to happen in the workplace or in the world in general for you to feel like you've left a lasting legacy?
So I in this moment, I feel really blessed, right? Because having come out of corporate and had a pretty long career in corporate, I am still very closely connected to some people that I engaged with, people, some that I hired, some who were mentors for me. And I've actually been able to reconnect with them in this entrepreneur role because of the relationships I built before, and because of the impact that I had before, because of the connection that we had before. And so at some level, there is a legacy of reputation that I've been able to build and to hold on to. But bigger than that, my dad, as we were growing up, there's just me and my brother. And as we were growing up, my dad and my mom always said, even if you have nothing, if you have a good name, you have everything. And education was really, really key for them. And so when I think about legacy with a capital L, what I'd really like to be able to do and have people say is, one, that I represented my mom and dad very well, but two, that I was able to make an impact in the education space to help marginalized students, marginalized communities in that space, because our education system, I think, is a freaking nightmare, and helping people get more access, making sure that there is exposure, making sure that there's experience. If there was one thing that came out of COVID that was good, although painful, it is this real great public realization of the disparity, the socioeconomic disparity around education, among other things, education, healthcare, things like that. But there is no reason why in this country, everyone shouldn't have access at least to an exceptional K through 12 education, and then at least a couple of years of either trade school or college, if that's their desire. And so to be able to make an impact in that space, I would feel like I've lived up to what I was put on this earth to do, not only making the purpose-filled impact for individuals around getting comfortable with who they are and the choices they make, and that they're okay just showing up as who they are, but to really get to those students to say, you can do. There are people that look just like you, who think like you, and if you can see it, you can do it, and to pump them up and give them opportunities, and then they can make out of them what they want. But to provide the opportunity for people and the runway for people in that space is just something I think I would feel good about that being on my epitaph, that she made an impact in education.
Yes, yeah. And I think that, clearly all of us do the work we do because we want to make a difference in the world, and especially for the individuals that we have the opportunity to connect with. So I'm 100% with you on that. I think education in this country is in a dreadful situation, and for a first world country, it's ridiculous. But so whatever we can do to make a difference, that's important.
Absolutely.
So what's your vision for yourself for the next 3 years, for your career, for your life in general? What's the next 3 years look like?
Well, the first thing is to get through this period of Mercury in retrograde, so my tech actually works. That would be a beautiful thing. I think when I think the next 3 years, it's really sitting deeply into this shift that I'm making, which is the message that I have to give to people is not about me, but it's about serving them, and stepping more fully into that with complete confidence, owning my message, and really being strong in delivering that safe space for people to be able to show up and be who they are, so they can have whatever career flow that they want. It's not about me telling people what they need to do or must do, but creating the opportunity for them to do it. So I see the continued growth of the podcast and the radio show, and more engagement with clients through these group processes where they begin to connect and they can latch onto their village, that we're building empowerment and seeing many, many more women, and specifically more women of color in senior level roles. And I want to know that the people that I have worked with, the people that I have served and purposefully and intentionally given everything I could to, I want to see them
Yeah.
be everything that they want to be. And if I can start to see that, I feel like the next 3 years are where they're supposed to be. When you're in service, prosperity comes. You know, I want a big business. I want a 7, 8, 9-figure business, but not because I want the money, but because I want to make that big an impact, right? Both on education and on this world that I'm in. I want to leave it better than I came into it. And so if I can be along that road in the next 3 years, having served more people, having the ability to see them succeed, then I will be doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
And I love what you just said, because clearly the reason why I'm doing what I do is because I want to see more women in leadership. This
Yes.
whole entire series of interviews is there to inspire and motivate by sharing stories, by seeing how other women approach their lives and the visions that they have and so forth. And so I agree with you. We need more women in senior leadership, and we definitely need more women of color who are taking the helm. And that's the piece that I think, you know, we really need to change that around in the workplace in general. You've had your fair share of that, I am sure, and lots of war stories to share too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Then there we go from there. So then what is your fearless factor? And I think that becomes a really critical question, because it's all about how do we move beyond fear? How do we move ourselves? And you said a little bit about that, but when we think about, if I was putting a label on what's my fearless factor, what would it be?
I have really come to realize that my fearless factor is really related to things that I didn't feel comfortable with before. And that is, I am extremely self-aware. I am extremely capable of being self-critical from a post-mortem perspective, right? And owning my own stuff. And by being able to be very, very knowledgeable and aware of who I am and how I show up and what I say and how that impacts, listening actively, my fearless factor has given me the experience, right? To see that my ability to know me, and because I know me, to be able to listen to others actively, has enabled me to connect dots and to paint pictures that no one else can paint the way I can, and to bring clarity to people that they really need. And so because I know that, and I've finally been able to sit in that and say, no, that's not weird, that's just you, that has made me more and more fearless, literally by the day, right? Every day I get a little bit more fearless, because I get downloads from the universe that say, nope, you connected a dot that somebody needed to hear, or you said something that really resonated with somebody. And it was just natural for me. I wasn't trying to be provocative. I wasn't trying to be, this genius person. I was just trying to connect and serve. And so that helps me be more fearless. As you said, it's not about never having fear, but be more fearless in just taking action regardless of the discomfort level.
Yes. Yeah. It's that old thing about being comfortable, being uncomfortable, so that we can, I know that that's just the way we operate, as long as you're stretching the limitations of who you think you are, and then again, taking full ownership of who you are, which is what you just explained very beautifully. That then becomes the driver, if you like, and it's definitely your fearless factor. And I personally, I love it. I think it's just great. So we need more of you in the world. That's what I would say.
Well, and I think we need more of you pulling fearless women together.
I'm doing the best I can. And I do think that there is a tribe of women, and it's a much larger tribe than we give credit for in our own individual little bubbles, so being able to expand the horizons, being able to create that community, this is very much a big piece of what I am currently doing. So thank you for sharing all you've shared with me today, and being part of our fearless community. So I look forward to continuing the conversation, but thank you, Laurel, for spending time with me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It has been quite a pleasure.